All right, hey there, folks. Welcome to yesterday's news for August 22nd, 2018. Today, I am actually going to cover the top two stories that were trending most of the day that everybody else was talking about, because I actually feel like I have something maybe potentially a little bit useful to say about both of them. So, first, I'm going to talk about the Michael Cohen plea bargain and what that means for Trump, etc. So, again, I know people are really looking for something to nail Trump on, and I can't help but feel like there is a lot of parallels here with the Clinton Ken Starr investigation from back when I was in high school. So, we have this dubious claim of, what, frankly, again, would have really only boiled down to a campaign finance violation in coordinating with with the Russians to influence the election, which, again, would only have been illegal if in the sense of a campaign finance violation, because it'd be coordinating with a third-party PAC, and that is illegal. But there's nothing that says that PAC can't be a foreign government. Or that foreign governments can't, that you would be guilty if a foreign government formed a PAC on your behalf, which is not even what happened. So, and then, they go down the line and they end up on some, story of sexual misconduct that doesn't surprise anybody. And then they try to catch him on a technicality. And, again, it's a campaign finance thing. And it's, first of all, as far as the, his sexual infidelity, like, that, okay, nobody's surprised by that. We knew who this guy was. Nobody who voted for him was like, he cheated on his wife? His third one? I mean, duh. But even so, they're really stretching to try and make it a campaign finance violation anyways, because they're having to basically claim that his paying off somebody so that they don't publish their story of an extramarital affair with him was somehow a campaign expenditure. But ultimately he paid for it, and he didn't pay for it out of the campaign funds, but the intermediary he used, Michael Cohen, had some involvement with the campaign, and they're arguing that his motivation had something to do with the campaign, and therefore it's a campaign expenditure, which is seriously a stretch, because I highly doubt this is the first time he's done this, and that's the argument, is he's done this a lot of times, and it's actually somewhat standard practice unfortunately, when you have it's basically a legal form of extortion. You can come up with a damaging story, and whether or not you have proof, if it's believable enough that you can get a media outlet to run the story, you can seriously damage somebody's reputation and company, etc. And so it is kind of standard practice in the world to settle these types of things rather than fight somebody in court. Because by the time even if you win the lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit, now you've just sued somebody, and half the people still believe the story about you. So it is unfortunately standard practice that somebody can come up with a believable story about you and if you have the money, the way you deal with it is you simply pay them to not share the story. And there are legal avenues to do that. Basically, you buy the rights to the story, and therefore you own the copyright on the story, and they can't publish it, which is what he did with Stormy Daniels and the other woman whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head, because Stormy Daniels is just an easier name to remember. So yeah, it's I am having flashbacks to the mid '90s and Ken Starr, and trying to make mountains out of molehills in order to get an impeachment for somebody that you don't like politically over something that really isn't a big deal, I'm not going to get any further into the White. Because that was, again, that investigation was started over something completely different, and they ended up with a salacious affair story. So the other story that I want to cover, and there's a lot more to say about this one philosophically and morally, and that is that the suspect who has now been arrested in the murder of Mollie Tibbets turns out is an illegal immigrant. So, the tagline in the thumbnail is "Beware of bad arguments, even for good ideas," and this is where I'm going with it. Is people are going to use this as an argument for why we need to do something about illegal immigration, because they've done it before. This isn't the first time an illegal immigrant has killed somebody, believe it or not. They've done it before, and this is a dangerous argument. Now, it is true that there is a causal relationship between illegal immigration and criminal activity, and it's very simple. That people who are law-abiding, averse to breaking the law, are more likely to be discouraged by a border fence. So, people who are coming here illegal, they're already okay with breaking one law, so the odds that they're more criminally minded than the average person go up. It's not that and people try to make a racial thing out of that, and that's frankly a racist argument, because you have to argue that it's their brownness and not the socioeconomic market forces that exist around an illegal border crossing. But to that point, if we start using the tendency of a particular demographic to commit crimes as justification to target enforcement of other laws against that demographic, that is a very, 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 very dangerous road to go down, because there are other statistical correlations about other demographics that we don't want to set that precedent, and it's not okay to enforce a law more aggressively because somebody fits a certain profile. To try and get them on this little thing to prevent them from doing this other crime, because that sets the precedent where we can start targeting people based on other things that, so they're actually innocent, or we're punishing them for a more serious crime that they didn't actually commit, because somebody else who did something related to something that they did that's more minor did commit that crime. And that's, you can't punish people for crimes that other people committed. That's really what it boils down to, is we can't accept in society that it is okay to punish somebody for a crime somebody else committed, or to modulate the perception, the perceived severity of a crime because somebody else who committed that crime also committed a more serious crime. Because I don't, if we accept that argument, God help us if people start looking at ethnic statistics in the U.S. and inner cities about crime, because those correlations exist, and now they are not, there isn't a causal relationship between ethnic groups and crime. There is a causal relationship between socioeconomic issues in the inner city and in fatherless households and all these things. But it's, if we start saying correlation gives us an excuse to start targeting people, that's not okay. So yeah, beware of bad arguments, even for good ideas. I believe I have another video on immigration, and I probably rambled a little too much on that. But open borders are my ideal. I believe in that idea. I just don't think it's a practical solution. And whatever we do, we need to enforce whatever law we have, we need to enforce that law, or we create a situation like we have now, where you have this big, basically black market for illegal immigration that then produces infrastructure that allows for things like human trafficking that are absolutely unacceptable and need to be dealt with. So I'm all for border security, especially when the nation to our south is going through the level of political upheaval and turmoil and crime that Mexico is suffering from, as well as countries farther south where people are coming up through Mexico. We do not want to be importing conflict. As much as I want to help people in conflict zones, we want to make sure we do that in a way that doesn't import that conflict. The same issue is with refugees from the Middle East and other places that, we have to find a way to help them that doesn't involve bringing their problems with them. And so border security in the south of the southern border is, part of that, and it's something that we need to do. But using another random case of an illegal immigrant committing another serious crime, in this case a horrific crime, as your argument, using that as your argument for why we need border security, is just a dangerous precedent to set. So please don't do that. There's plenty of good arguments for border security that do not involve correlative justice. Let's put it that way, because that is a dangerous precedent. And so I think I'm rambling a little too much. So with that, hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, subscribe if you did, and if not, ignore me, and I will see you tomorrow.